Hey you guys, what's up? I'm Ashley from heavenathome.org, and this is the Heaven at Home podcast, where my goal is to encourage you in your personal growth journey while being open, honest, and owning my story. We have faith-based conversations and tackle a bunch of different tough topics. Check out the description to follow me and learn more. Remember, you are fully known and deeply loved. Let's do this. Wow. So if you notice that I sound kind of mellow this time around, you guys, it's probably one or two things. One is that I've lost my voice. So if it cracks or, something crazy happens, I'm so sorry about that. And then the other thing is that I'm just now realizing exactly how long it's been since I've done this. So just getting into the process of everything is throwing me off, and I'm like, oh wait, like this used to come so quick and now I have to think twice about everything. So I thought that it would be interesting just to first off talk about what's happening in my life right now. I started teaching. I'm actually, living that out now, so that's pretty exciting stuff. Ava started daycare and she's doing very, very well. She's very happy. She might be an introvert. It's kind of looking like that to an extent. She really likes to be on her own. But for the most part, she's doing very, very well there. And I'm happy to see her happy. I think that's it in terms of stuff that's new. I'd really love to talk more about where my mind's at, but I feel like that could easily be like a whole other thing. So I thought it would be cool to just talk to you guys openly and honestly, as is my ambition with everything that I'm doing now with the blog and the podcast, and really the whole root of my business is in being as transparent as possible, appropriately, responsibly, all that stuff. So I thought it would be an interesting viewpoint for you guys to just get a glimpse into my life, and I could just talk to you guys about some really hard and tough things that I've been going through this past, honestly, couple years now. Because I was looking back on all my podcast episodes, on all my blog posts, and even my Instagram, and I'm like, wow, like I feel like I've done a really good job of like focusing on positive things, being optimistic, focusing on goals, dreams, ambitions, encouraging others. But I thought it would kind of be eye-opening for others who, are exposed to that kind of content to also know that I don't live in a fantasy land and real life happens to me. So it's kind of going to be a story time with this one. So if you're into this stuff, please feel free to stick around, and if you're not, then I'll have more personal growth informational stuff coming up. So yeah. All right. So I guess to start off, life in and of itself got pretty hard for me in October 2019. I think hard things were happening in all areas of my life. Relationships were getting hard, friendships were getting hard. I was just making my way out of some postpartum anxiety, postpartum blues. Like, there's like, it's called baby blues, that first 2 weeks when you have your baby and you're like, oh my gosh, this little thing is like so scary because I have to keep it alive. And, it's like the whole time I was pregnant, of course, like I knew how much I love my baby, and I was constantly praying, and I felt like I was almost very spiritually minded while I was pregnant. And then all of a sudden she's born, and I realized, wow, like I am just so out of control here. Like I'm obviously going to do the best I can to not break her in any way, like, but it was just very scary. So I was just making my way out of that, like just starting to be comfortable with motherhood and new routines and all this stuff. And when things started getting hard, I pretty much came to the realization that so much of my vision for the future, I'm a very future oriented person. I realized that it was closely tied around one single thing. And apart from that one thing, a lot of what God said, a lot of what I expected, a lot of what I envisioned didn't really make a lot of sense. So mentally, I had that going on for me. And it's kind of weird because I think there's a lot of stuff that we learn in life, like from the day we're born to this very present moment. There's so much stuff that happens in life that shapes who we are and how we deal with our feelings and how we deal with our thought life and all that stuff. And there's something about all the hard things that I was dealing with around that time that kind of just made me realize that I was living with a lot of really deep wounds that I had really only ever covered up with like a band-aid. So it all just kind of started seeping out in these crazy ways. And I'm like, yo, I thought I was past this. I thought I was healed. I thought I knew who I was. And it was just like a moment where like, oh no, wait, like there's some work to do here. So God was really working on me on that, like in that time, like he was working on my character, in order to just be a better person at home, be a better person, with my friends, a better sister, a better daughter, a better wife and mom, like all the things, just better all around. And especially within the 6 months after my daughter Ava was born, my mom was here with me. And having her helped me out so much, like more than I could have ever anticipated. Like if you would ask me before, oh, do you ever think you'll need your mom again, I probably would have said no, but I needed my mom. So she was with me all the way up until December, I think. And then in very early January, she moved back to Florida, pretty much just to find some happiness again and rekindle love. But in March 2020, right around the time that quarantine was happening because of COVID, my stepfather had a stroke. And I think for some months after, I just anticipated that he would get better. I just assumed that he would get back to normal. And so even though the situation was hard, I think to an extent, I was like, okay, well, he's young enough, like everything can turn out okay. Like I just had good expectations surrounding that, at least in the forefront of my mind. So I was back in school for a while, and over the summer, I was just starting to notice things. I had developed like a really, really strong case of social anxiety. And I think it's because in the beginning, when everything hard was happening, I was trying to do the opposite of what comes naturally, which is to isolate. And so I reached out as often as I could, obviously with the right people. But I think because a lot of people close to me knew what was happening with me, it almost felt like in situations where I was supposed to be happy or just situations where I was supposed to just show up, I just felt like my pain was written on my forehead. And I don't really know how else to explain that, but it's just like, oh, I just felt like it was obvious and it made me very, very uncomfortable. And especially with school, I was noticing that I was just losing track of details. I didn't really have the energy to pick up around the house. A lot of times, I wouldn't have the energy to socialize either. Like I kind of stopped picking up phone calls. One of those phone calls I like halfway regret and halfway don't. My grandmother called me to say happy birthday. And because I didn't feel up to it, I missed that one. But now that she's gone, I have that one to keep, which makes it kind of special to me. But anyway, so I guess to compensate for the stuff that was just naturally like taking a toll on my body, like I just tried taking energy supplements and they kind of helped. And It helped with school, it helped with focus, it helped me with attention to detail, it helped me with my energy, it helped in creating a positive mood. Like I didn't really feel so much brain fog. And, but I think around my daughter's first birthday, that's when things were getting like really, really intense. And in general, like just looking back, I remember a lot of tears. I remember crying on the couch, crying in the car, crying in the closet, crying in the shower, crying all the time. And like it was a deep cry. Like I don't know how to explain it, but it's almost like a sob that is so deep. Like it's all the way up until your last breath and you have nothing left. And then you take a deep breath and do it all over. Like it was very intense. But during the summer, instead of only mental symptoms or emotional symptoms, there were also physical symptoms, like things happening with my body. And it was annoying. So I went to the doctor, and she pretty much told me that I had an adjustment disorder, which is basically a very severe emotional, behavioral, mental reaction to like stressful events. And it usually happens like months after whatever thing has happened. So, all this stuff is going on, and I'm still a student, and I just I literally felt like so much stuff was just falling between my fingers. Like, despite how much I was trying to keep control and keep composure and just continue to do well, and like, I'm a person that doesn't like to meet expectations, like, I like to exceed them. And so that was disappointing for me. In general, like, I felt like my will to be strong did not matter. Like, because the effects of everything going on around me, it was still happening. And it's like, oh, okay, like, if you don't take care of it this way, it's going to come out this way. And like, it was just like, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, that's the best I can do. I'm sorry. So I started student teaching in August, which was soon after I created and started pursuing this business. And being a student and a teacher is really more like filling out two completely separate full-time roles. Like, you still have the assignments and responsibilities as a student, but you also have the planning, teaching, assessing, and differentiating that happens when you're a teacher. So I was doing all of that remotely at home with Ava, who was like a 1-year-old at the time, and it presented a lot of challenges as a mom, because there were a lot of circumstances where I felt like I had one foot in and one foot out, and I didn't really feel like I was fulfilling my role as a mom the way I should have. So I'm student teaching, and I remember being in the middle of a Zoom class with my happy and energetic kindergartners, and then all of a sudden, I receive a text to the left of the laptop. I'll never forget. The desk was facing the window in our office at the time, and I read a message that said my grandmother had collapsed in the bathroom that morning, and she was in Florida, and I'm here in North Carolina. And if you know me at all, I'm the kind of person who like runs to a problem and like faces it like head on. And so just like kind of realizing in that moment that there was nothing I could do, and I was completely powerless and completely out of control, that was pretty difficult for me. And I remember being in the middle of that session, and my heart was beating really, really intense. The room around me got very, very fuzzy for a second. And I texted my clinical educator because there was actually a YouTube video playing at the moment. I let her know what was happening, and she was like, okay, well, if you want, I can take over, if you need a minute. And I was just like, no, like, there's literally nothing I can do. So I just kept going. And then when it was like lunchtime or something, it was midday. It was actually a very, very sunny day. I went downstairs and I tried really hard to pray and say words, but literally no words came. I just was sitting there and I just felt very assured that the Holy Spirit was with me. And I just kept thinking, okay, like, is this it? Like, is she gonna go now, or like, what's happening? But I felt like the Holy Spirit told me that she wasn't going to go yet. Like, specifically yet is what I remember. Which did give me some peace because, like I said, I was in the middle of student teaching, and that would have been, I think, a bit too much for me. So, and I also knew that I knew to anticipate it, and I knew that if and when the time came, I just felt a confidence that I would be able to see her in person before she goes. Whew. And so much had been happening with my mom in this time. Like, she was trying to manage her situation with my stepdad. And I remember just like somewhere in the middle of all of this stuff happening, I was standing at the foot of the island in our kitchen with only the dining room lights on. And I was just like really feeling the weight of everything that my mom was dealing with, and feeling like I should be more available and more involved. And I felt this in other relationships as well, with friends and all this stuff, like, in general, just feeling feeling what everyone else is going through, feeling that there's a need for me, an expectation for me, but also just knowing that I only had enough strength to deal with my own garbage. It was like really, really hard. So my stepfather, he actually passed away November 1st, 2020. And this was still while everything was going on with my grandmother. And my mom, like, in the worst way, was like having a front row seat to everything. Eventually and thankfully, I ended up graduating, and I attended my ceremony over the computer, and I got like super, super dressed up for it. Just to celebrate, because literally nothing else was gonna happen. So I remember calling my mom, and I was just like, show me Abuela so I can let her know I finally graduated, because my grandmother was literally always asking. So it's cool because my mom was actually taking like a FaceTime photo at the time, and it was probably like a live photo. So I was actually able to like see her face like move. Like, it's just a cool memory to have with that call. So now we're in 2021, and I think it was, I don't know if it was late February or early March. I want to say March. Stuff was going on with my heart. Like, literally my heart. I thought I was having a heart attack. Usually, if I ever had chest pain, what I would do in the years before is I would lay down, I'd stretch out my arms, I'd take really, really deep breaths, especially if I noticed that my chest was feeling tight before bed. I would take like legitimately like 20 deep breaths to loosen that. But on this particular day, it was actually the day after some really close friends of mine were moving away. Um, the chest pain, despite that, the fact that I had done everything that I normally do, just try to breathe to relieve it, it stayed with me the whole night. And I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I actually even dreamt of the pain, because it's like my body was aware of it. And so that was happening in the middle of the night. And then I woke up and it was still there. I'm like, wait, this is not normal. Like, something's seriously going on. So I ended up going to urgent care. Urgent care sent me to the emergency room. And that was like a whole thing. And I ended up going to Florida for just the month, to spend some very much needed quality time with my family, because it had been a very long time since I saw them. But I was over there, and I think I was just trying to decompress for 2 weeks. I had planned to see my grandmother. I had intentions to see my grandmother, but I wasn't quite ready to deal with that reality in person yet. So I spent some time relaxing in the sun by the pool and moving at the gym, and honestly just recharging a bit and relaxing at the same time. So April 3rd, I went over to see her. And I actually have some pictures on my Instagram of that. And she looked very different. And I remember just staring at her, like just sitting next to her and staring at her, holding her hand. She winced. I think I did something accidentally to hurt her. So I tried to hold her hand. I put both my hands on her cheeks, and I just kept telling her that I love her over and over. And I was like, te amo tanto, tanto, tanto. And I'd spread my arms out in front of her and just looked at her. And then when it was time to go, I was looking at my aunt and my mom, and I was like, I just feel so bad, leaving her like this. So I think the next day was actually Easter. And Easter that year was April 4th. So I saw her on a Saturday. Easter was that Sunday. And then April 5th, she passed away very early in the morning. Yeah, and then so I ended up spending another month down there, partially because I wanted to make sure that I was there for her memorial service. And then I was just helping out my mom with things around the house, because my stepfather, like I mentioned, passed away, and she was needing some help with that. So I stayed around. It took about a week alone to just empty the garage. We had a huge, I don't even know what those things are called, a huge dumpster full of stuff from only the things that were in the garage, because that was Mike always holding on to a bunch of hardware and tools and some other random stuff. So yeah, I feel like that's everything that's been going on this past almost 2 years. And I'm just, like I mentioned, I think coming to terms to an extent with some struggles I'm having with depression and anxiety. But I feel like I just noticed that, or I guess I just have this thought that's very different. Because I know that the thing is, a lot of the stuff that's happened to me within this past couple of years has been because of life happening, just life. Life is hard. Um, so it's very hard for me to say like that the depression or the anxiety is tied to me as a person, as though like it's in me to an extent. I don't know if you know what I mean. Um, so just kind of, I feel like where my mind is at right now, um, I've been taking some time to, I guess, take inventory and weigh the balances of stuff. And I guess here's my thing. I think a lot of times, specifically in the Christian community, um, there's this belief, which I'm not going to say is right or wrong, because honestly, that's not my place. But there's this belief that if you have mental health issues, like depression or like anxiety, that to an extent, it shows that you don't believe God or something. That either you don't believe what he said, that you're doing something wrong. But I feel like, at least in my personal case, that's not necessarily true. Because, and this is like the only real illustration that comes to my mind, but I think about Jesus and how he took on his cross and he had his call and his purpose and his mission, and all those great things that came from God also had very sad, painful consequences. And um I don't think that his belief in God made the nails in his wrists or the nails in his feet hurt any less. So if I I don't know if that kind of helps, but like when I realize the toll that all of this has taken on my body, on my mind, um, and I'm literally struggling with these things. Like, um, I don't feel like it's an indication that I believe God less, because it's not true. I believe God for everything that He said. If there's ever a moment where I'm like, what the heck are you doing? I remind myself, I have notes, I have videos. I pray about it. I let myself feel all my feelings. But I understand that I'm not Superwoman and I'm still a feeling person. And so if something happens in the world or in my world um, that hurts, that's okay. And I still have the goals of getting out, if that makes any sense. Like I'm not committed to the thought of making depression or anxiety a lifelong or long-term thing for me. I'm going to feel it. I'm going to wrestle with it. I'm going to address it. I'm going to work through it. I'm going to fight it, because there are some times where, like, I don't know if you've ever wrestled with the feeling of just wanting to be sad, or even just being made easily anxious, being easily flustered. Like, I understand that there are sometimes you have to manage those things and you have to say, no, I choose to have a good day. Or this thing is making me anxious. There are things I can do so that it doesn't seem like such a daunting thing. I can take it step by step. I can make a plan. I can write a list. I can ask for help. But I think that's just been the biggest realization for me. And so I just kind of wanted to come on here and share some stuff about me without so much of a filter, so that I see my audience is like 110 of you at the moment. But it's so that you guys can know that there's a real person on the other end dealing with real things, and still trying to believe God for real. So, in spite of all the hard things that I shared today, I want you to know that God is still with you, that God is still with you wherever you are, whether that's in the valley of the shadows, whether that's on the mountaintop, whether that's in the car in the middle of the night or on a couch in the very corner or in the bathroom over the toilet because of that kind of anxiety. I'm just telling you, he's with you, okay? And you're not alone, and he loves you. And I just encourage you guys to continue to let him in, even to those very scary places where we don't want anyone else to be. Invite him in there.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Feel free to DM me to send me your feedback. Check out the description below to follow me on social media. This podcast is listener supported. Don't forget to subscribe. Remember, you are fully known and deeply loved. I'll see you in the next one.